That's carried.
Yes, that's right. Yes. The next item on the agenda is Harewood Road, Gardiners Road, Breens Road intersection improvements. I've got a team to come to the table. Kiwi's choice for the Margaret Mayhew playground.
Oh, that's hopeless.
Anyway, sorry, I'm just too short for my chairs, obviously. Right. I don't know whether did you want to?
Shall I just give you 2 or 3 quick points just to open it and introduce Paul Dearden beside me. And apologies from Brendan, he's just been called away quickly. If he gets back, he'll step in beside me. So Harewood Gardiners Breens intersection went out to consultation, significant feedback from the community, a very clear message that connectivity as well as safety were key issues at this intersection for the community. Briefing was held with councillors on Tuesday. Our staff recommendation remains the same on safety reasons. The staff recommendation hasn't changed. However, the community board has recommended the acceptance of option 3, which is to install traffic signals at this intersection. And I'll take it from there with questions.
Right. Questions, Pauline?
So when you say option 3, that's option 2 in the consultation?
It was option 2 in the consultation documentation, my apologies. It was option 3 in the report.
Right. And
so 2 options were consulted on with the community, and following feedback there was 3, 4 in the report. 4.
Right. Do you I mean, reading the report, it's quite clear that the option of signalisation of the sort that I think they're thinking of is not necessarily the safest option. Do you have a view of perhaps the community, they're concerned about safety, but are signals necessarily the only choice here to address the safety issues?
I think connectivity was the issue that came through the submissions process.
Yep. So it was about maintaining the connection between Gardiners Road and Harewood Road and Breens Road that was raised through the consultation process. Staff have put up what they believe are viable options in the report.
Thank you. Did anyone else have a question? You'd like to move it, Aaron, and seconded by Raph.
Who's got a question?
Yeah, you know, I just settle. I'm just taking stock of what's going on in the room. That's all right. So, Phil.
Thank you. I just want to clarify around the safety issues with traffic lights per se. With hindsight, was it really clear enough in the consultation document? Do you think? Because it seemed, and where I'm coming from is it's pretty clear, absolutely clear in our report. It's far less than the safest option. Yet I'm just wondering why, given careful consultation, the community didn't feedback that way too.
The consultation document was, I believe it was very clear in the consultation document. The consultation document had gone through an extensive process of feedback between staff, the community board chair and deputy chair, and the deputy chair and chair of the ITE committee. It was a very lengthy consultation document, and it was a complex consultation document. So I don't know.
So there's no, we don't really
I believe
know,
it was clear,
yeah,
but
and we don't really know why the community still responded that way against an option that was clearly unsafe.
Councillor, we're just here to report on what the community did respond.
We don't know. Thank you. That's fine.
Sorry, excuse me. This is my fault. I thought that what was in front of us was an alternative set of wording. Can you scroll up to that? Which was to approve in principle option 3 of the agenda report, traffic signals consultation option 2, and request that staff investigate funding options and report back to council in time for inclusion in the 2020-21 annual plan. that was what was circulated to all of the councillors before. We discussed it with the chair of the community board and staff as well. And I understand that this was what was to be moved. So if we could move the Councillor Kewen, Councillor Manji down to the 1 and 2, that makes it clear that number 3 isn't being resolved because there are different ways of providing those funding options, and we need staff to come back to council with the funding options. All right, so there was another question somewhere. Sarah.
Thank you. Just checking on the traffic lights per se. The report that we got, the traffic report that went to the community board that the community hadn't seen, makes it clear that the traffic lights are the least safe option, but they're not unsafe, and they're better than what's there now.
Yeah, you go.
Yeah, that's right. It's the least safe of the 3 options that were presented to us to analyse, which being the left and left out arrangement, the one that wasn't included in the consultation, which was the 2010 approved one laning of Harewood Road, and then there's the signalisation as well.
Yep.
Signalisation isn't unsafe, but it would be likely to have the most crashes compared to the 3 options that we looked at.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Mike?
Thank you. Obviously, whatever happens with the decision today, it's going to be a bit of time lag before anything actually happens if this is approved. And I guess the community have expressed their concern with that intersection at the moment, and you know, we know there's options that we could look at doing something in the meantime. And I'm just wondering if there's still the possibility to actually have some engagement as well with the community about possibly having a look at something to happen in the interim. So perhaps some, and I guess this is up to the community board because it's their community, but potentially having some conversation with the community board and then after the elections about possible interim measures.
We can do that. By that stage, councillor, we will be well into the annual plan discussion, so it will be it may be, but yes, we can have a conversation with the community board in the new year. New term. Yeah, sorry.
I was going to ask about the school. Is that a 40k zone in front of the school?
No, it's not at the moment.
Yeah, no,
It's
it is.
not.
It is. Oh, it is. Sorry,
It is?
my apologies.
Okay,
Sorry, that's why I was late. I was just confirming. So it has been given a 40k speed zone.
Great, great. Because I just thought if that hadn't been done, could be something that we could be getting on with. So that's great. All right. So I'll open it up for discussion. Pauline?
Yeah, I know this has been a very long-standing and contentious issue. I attended the community board hearings and listened to the people. Not everybody, although there was a strong presence that did, want traffic lights, which to me, I think is they've gone to a solutions-based approach to, which is not necessarily the correct one, to their perception of safety issues. I attended that hearings and not everybody was of that same view. There was a lot of people who actually did not want the lights. What I'm struggling with here is that I read in the report, and particularly the Abley report, that the lights are far from the safest option. I read that this intersection is now well below the 100 in our least safe intersection list. I'm still struggling with us prioritising this intersection over others. If we could find an option that tied in with the cycleway, I would be happy to support that work being advanced and that built into this intersection to make changes, but as it stands today, I really can't support talking about traffic lights on their own there. In the report, it says that traffic lights will actually increase traffic volumes on Breens Road by 30%. Where there's a school, it will cause delays, increase congestion, and this is the most expensive option, the one in the report, so that 1.2 million. So I'm really struggling to support this today, I'm sorry.
Anyone else? Well, look, I'll speak briefly. I am going to support this. I think that, you know, and we had a conversation earlier on in the day in relation to another report in terms of community expectation. There are different ways that funding for this can be obtained, and that enables those options to be properly looked at. But I think that the community deserves to have the answer that it's been looking for, which is to have the traffic signals approved in principle by this council, the details of which will be established by the incoming council, and in time for inclusion in the 2020-21 annual plan. And that enables things to happen. And I think that we should be enabling in this environment as opposed to, you know, holding it back for further consideration. You know, I do think that there are challenges with traffic signals, so it's not necessarily something that would be my first point of view. And in fact, when we went out for consultation, I felt that the closing off of Harewood Road would actually create a more safe environment, because it could then give us the option of signalised crossing for those that are pedestrians, the children essentially, to get safely across the road to school. But after having listened to the community, what the community talked about was connectivity. They actually talked about that road, even though it's got two different names, Gardiners Road and Breens Road, it really is a particular route. There is a challenge with traffic lights because it does increase traffic volumes. I mean, the experience shows that that's what happens. I'm worried about what happens at the other end when they hit a T intersection. I was pleased to hear that the school already has a lower speed zone, so that will calm traffic as it goes past the school. So, you know, it does create challenges, but I think that we need to see this as an opportunity of having responded to how the community values that connectivity. And as I've said on more than one occasion, the day that I was asked to detour down Breens Road and turn, Gardiners Road from Sawyers Arms Road, which is actually my route to the airport, and to detour down Gardiners Road and turn right into Harewood Road, I was being offered the experience that I found particularly challenging, and so I do totally relate to how the community feels in that regard. Mike.
Thank you. I just want to acknowledge Councillor Kewen and the Community Board for advocating for their community. And the community has clearly spoken. I think one of the important things, I guess, is to realise, although this is not the most safest outcome, it's not unsafe. And I think one of the issues we have now is actually making sure that we get the right outcome for all users of that intersection, whether they're walking, biking or in a car, and actually find out where the money is. Because yes, it's not a great intersection, but it's not the worst intersection, and I'm sure other councillors around here wouldn't want to see intersections in their wards bumped down to prioritise this one. But what we do know is there is money in the long-term plan for this area. So it's how we can work everything together to actually get an outcome that gets the result that this community wants, and they actually have an intersection that works for everyone. So I will be supporting the recommendations.
Dion?
Yeah, I'm going to support the recommendations. I think credit to Councillor Kewen, who's done an incredible amount of work with his community out there, and I think we need to listen to what they're saying. I do have a solution for some polls. Next week, I think there's a paper coming to council on Chewham Street High Street intersection where there's currently 20 odd poles. You can have them. There's 22 actually, or 21, but you can have them. So there we go. Half of the cost has been found. So I'm sure we can do this in the next annual plan and get it done.
Oh, yeah. Phil and Yanni.
I'm going to vote against this. I just think it's wrong in principle to approve a project where we've clearly told in the report the traffic signals are the least safe of these options. I just think it's wrong. One of the submitters to the community board actually said, "Yep, if you said to people, would you like to have a total tax break? Who wouldn't say yes?" So in theory, to most people, traffic lights seem great. the report is quite clear that where we've done this in similar areas, in fact, traffic accidents have worsened and there have been more serious injuries, and including death. So I just think there are other ways of doing this. We have other options before us too. And I concur with Councillor Cotter that in fact having signalised crossings for a cycleway, when they could go in, that would also keep the children safe, and it would be a safe way of crossing. And clearly there are these other options. And I just think that basically this creates precedent for and as councillors we're told, look, we need to take the whole city's views into account. Well, why don't we in this case? And if we were, we would be looking at other dangerous, real dangerous intersections, which are well up on the 100 list, whereas this is below the 100. So there's no way that in conscience I can actually support this in principle.
Yanni?
I struggle to know why we're saying that traffic lights are going to make things more dangerous. We've put in so many traffic lights in the city since the earthquake. It's been unbelievable. Like someone just said, we got 21 traffic lights at one intersection. Go and look at a lot of other intersections as well, where we've got traffic lights that are having babies and having traffic lights put on top. We've got arrows that turn right in left-hand lanes. We have more traffic lights in the city than just about any other city in the world. I really think we need, we did ask for a workshop on the whole issue of traffic lights and placement, and in all seriousness, we actually do need to have it. We need to have some comprehension around what sort of traffic lights are appropriate, because at the moment we're just putting in so many traffic lights, and if it's because they're making things more dangerous, then we should consider, but if it's not because it's making things safer, then let's really think about how we're doing it. But this is an issue that's been to the local community. The local councillor have been in agreement. I can't see any good reason to decline this today, although if I do find out there's going to be 20 traffic lights being put in, then I will be concerned. The best thing to do is to actually combine it with the cycling safety, and I do kind of wonder why that's not being done at the same time, even if it's just one part of that cycle network, because this is the other issue we've got, why things cost so much, is we do 3 different projects in 3 different years rather than doing them once and at one time, and so we just duplicate all this money. And I think the previous councillor for the Central City just gave the example of High Street reducing the number of intersections. Well, how much did we pay on that original intersection, and now how much are we having to pay extra removing something that was just done just a few years ago? So anyway, let's get on with this. It's been through a consultation. I can't see any reason to hold it up.
I've got James, Sarah and Tim.
Thanks. Well, the safest option is actually just to block off all of the roads there, and then there's no issues at all, or perhaps have an open road speed limit of 10 k's. That's probably the safest option as well, but it's just not practical. So I think what this is ultimately about is it's about valuing the work of the community board, and perhaps most importantly, valuing the wishes of that local community. So the recommendations in front of us reflect the clear direction provided by the community, and the local community board was unanimous in its support for option 3 of the agenda report. So there's no two ways about it. This intersection is horrific. The Mayor's talked about just driving it, and anyone that drives this themselves will realise that the status quo simply does not work. Our community wants traffic signals, and I agree with them. The community has asked, the community board has heard. Will the council listen?
Sarah?
Just very briefly, to address Councillor Clearwater's point on and Councillor Cotter on it being the least safe option. Actually, it's not. It was the least safe of the 3 assessed options within that report. Actually, the least safe option is do nothing. And so that's why we need to go ahead and do this today. It's not in this resolution being prioritised ahead of other intersections. We've asked for options for funding in time for the annual plan. We haven't said, let's put it in the annual plan. Thank you.
Okay. Tim.
Thank you, and all credit to Councillor Kewen for pursuing this. Intersections don't cause accidents, lights don't cause accidents, humans cause accidents, and for some strange reason, when humans hop in a car, they then give themselves a lobotomy, turn the key on and drive off. So the fact of the matter is the lights will make this safer for this community have spoken out incredibly loudly. I think it's time that we did listen to them. It may not be the absolute ultimate option, but if you kind of look at 21 lights in a intersection as being an ultimate option, I don't think you want it. So I think this is a good result. Cheers.
Thank you. All right, I shall put... Oh, sorry, Aaron, yes.
Yeah, thank you. I was wondering, I didn't speak at the start because I didn't want to burn my bridges before we got started. So now I'll refrain myself from saying anything incredibly stupid or offensive, as I am known to do. But that's just on behalf of my community. These traffic lights are not my idea. The community raised them back in the old days when Pat Harewood was a councillor for the area, and so in the 90s that community was asking for traffic lights there. So it's nothing new. It was 4 years ago, a mother who couldn't let her own children walk to school got hold of me as a community board member, not even for that area, she got the area wrong, but she contacted me and asked about traffic lights. And I raised it publicly once and just got bombarded with people from an area that wanted something. This morning we signed off a swimming pool for tens of millions of dollars that a community wants and a community will use. This is something a community wants. Every 3 years we have an election for the public to choose people to sit at this table to make decisions on their behalf. And 80% of the population in this, or of the community in this area, come forward and said, we want traffic lights, even when they were given a document that said not to do traffic lights. So you couldn't talk them out of it. I ran a survey and it was not biased. I put the question, because you can do a loaded one, I put, would you be happy for Harewood Road to be reduced to 1 lane in each direction and the cycleway brought forward if it meant we got traffic lights at Harewood, Breens, Gardiners? 81% said no, 19% said yes. That was in 24 hours and it was not boosted. 230 people replied to that. It's a community speaking, and today it looks like this council is listening. So to everyone that votes for it, I thank you, and to the others,
Thank you. I shall put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. So it's Cotter and Clearwater. I will that's